But yeah, let's.
Hello, welcome back to our YOML show, a year of magical learning. Today we're doing book 78 by one of my favorite philosopher.
You can call him that.
I'll hand it over to Chris.
Yeah, so like you said, you could maybe call this guy. He's certainly a philosopher.
He's a philosopher.
I agree. The book is called The Warrior Within. It's the Philosophies of Bruce Lee by the author John Little. Bruce Lee never wrote his own book or anything like that. Obviously, everybody knows that he died pretty early in his life. This guy took a lot of collection of his personal journal writings and personal library and combined it to form this volume of teachings and philosophies that he talked about with his students and himself. It was an interesting book. I enjoyed it. The reflection that this one made me think of personally is one of the quotes that he talks about in this book is he talks about how to be water. It's like, be water, my friend, is like Bruce Lee's. You guys ever heard that before?
Mm-hmm. Well, I did.
He says, be water, my friend.
Be water, my friend.
And what he means by that is, and he wrote down in his journals, it was empty your mind. Oh, I'm going to share my screen. I forgot about that. It's empty your mind, be formless, be shapeless, be like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. If you put water into a bottle, it becomes the water. If you put it into a teapot, it becomes a teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. And for me, like this made me, it's really cool philosophy, obviously, right? Adapt, be flexible, be fluid, whatever environment you're thrown into, be able to conform to the environment, but also at the same time fill up the space. A lot of the just general ideas around it really resonates in general. And when I was writing this reflection, though, with a lot of philosophies, it always sounds great in theory, but it's really hard in practice, right? If you actually read this one, I talked about, Ben, do you guys ever remember the movie Armageddon?
I can't believe you're referencing this. I love it.
So you remember when Ben Affleck is hooking up with Bruce Willis's daughter, Liv Tyler, in the movie, and he finds out when they're on the oil rig and he chases him around with a gun and then he shoots him in the arm and he's like, it's all fun and games until somebody gets shot in the arm. That was kind of what I was thinking about when I heard Be Water, when I was thinking about Be Water and writing this reflection. And for me, what I was meaning by that is, like, it's great to say, be fluid, be adaptable, be flexible. But like, what happens when the baby wakes you up at 2 a.m. in the morning and you got to go feed him and then put him back down and he doesn't go to sleep for like an hour and your wife's out of town and you got all this other stuff going on and then you can't go back to sleep and it's 5 o'clock in the morning and you're talking about the 10 meetings, your brain's just on racing with the 10 meetings you have coming up and all the crap you have to do, right? Like, are you going to be able to be water then? Like, it's going to be really tough, right? You got to really train yourself to be able to live this kind of a philosophy. And for me, it made me go back to and think about what we talk about all the time, which is our values, right? It's like, how do I, in practicality, become water? For me, the answer has been the past couple of years in this journey to really leverage my values. I feel like values and the whole concept of being water are very similar to me. Values are flexible, they're malleable, they're adaptable. Like one of my core values is learn something new every day. Like, yes, I choose to read books and listen to audiobooks, but I can learn from anything, right? Like I can become water, if you will, with my values by, I can learn by watching documentaries, by, just go and talk to like an old person or something like that and getting their wisdom, by, listening to podcasts, by, watching some TV show or going, I don't know. There's a million different ways you can learn something new every day. And that for me is how I like to think of these days, is to like live out that philosophy of Bruce Lee, trying to say, be water and how to be more flexible and adaptable for yourself. So that was what this whole concept made me think about. And something I've really taken to heart over the past couple of years. Like, if you're really leveraging these values, you can really be adaptable and flexible to any situation. That's what I'm striving to do. So I'll pause there. Love to get your guys' thoughts. A question that I asked at the end was, what techniques or strategies do you personally use to try to be like water in your life? But you can comment on whatever you want to comment.
I don't know if everyone sees the same order. I see Chris, me, Trio, Blake. What order do you guys see?
It's a little different.
No.
I really like this quote. I wrote it down and it makes me want to like plaster it up on my wall, I like that insight. Be water, my friend. And Chris, I like your insight about how your values are water, and just how like water takes, it's always, water like that same volume, but it takes whatever shape it needs to take. And I guess all I can say right now is I like it. And because I find, sometimes myself like stuck in certain patterns of thinking or eating or just ruminating on thoughts. And one thing for me that's helped is just through meditation is just noticing my thoughts and then just trying to let them go and not being attached to them. And then it's coming back to whatever I'm doing in the moment, whether it's focusing on my breath during meditation, or whether it's driving, or whether it's walking with students or playing a game. And I think also like that whole be water, my friends, also just like about being present too, is one thing I'm getting right now. So I think I like it because not always just going back to our habits of doing the same thing over and ingrained and, oh, this is the way I do things, this is the way I do. But yeah, I think being water, I think I could be a little bit more flexible. Even like, for example, my roommate, I went to Burton's Market before I came home, and he was there doing a little writing, and he was like, oh, you want to sit down and have a beer? And my initial reaction was like, no, because I got to go, I was planning, I got to go do this, and then I got to, meet at 6 o'clock with some people. And I totally could have like actually just, sat down and hung out with him, but like, I was so ingrained, like, no, this is what I'm doing. And I'm actually trying to be a little bit more flexible, I think, in my life. It's just little things I'm working on. So yes, I'll be more like water this week.
Love it.
So made me think about different personality types a little bit, how there are some people who are very type A that need, they need to do, they're all got a schedule, they got a plan, and those people need to be more, more like water. And then you got the other end of the people who, no matter, they can't say no to things, it's whatever comes up is what they go with. And then you think kind of on the other end too, you don't want to be sometimes too much water. You got to know your core values. This is who I am. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm not going to move away from. You want to be somewhere in the middle, I would say. And it also made me think about, as you were talking about the waking up in the middle of the night and all that stuff. And you're like, oh my gosh, I had an ordeal like that here recently where I had all these meetings the next day, and we ended up going to the urgent care and literally not getting any sleep. And, what I try to tell myself, I got to do this, and then I got that. Oh, I got to remind myself, just when my mind is just going, just be like, just stop, just take a second, just let all the noise stop, and just be in the moment for a second. Like, yeah, baby's crying. Yeah, it seems, oh, I'm so mad, but it's like, also I see how much he's already grown up, and it's like, you're gonna miss these things when they're gone. So like, learn to be in the moment, and some of the crappy times, and just kind of roll with it a little bit, and don't let little things, affect me so much. So the technique, how do I be more like water, is usually that whole, sometimes just kind of like try to stop what I'm doing, stop my thinking, and just kind of just take a second to be still and be silent. And that kind of helps regroup me.
Be flexible to the situation, and adapt your mindset to wherever you're at. It's because it is hard. Like I wasn't kidding when I said, like, can you be water? I've done this many times with his babies. I'm sure growing up, you get tested to the limits with whatever it may be, your students at school or,
Work.
Your emotions take over, and you
try
to be fluid,
can you be water?
Right. Yeah. That's the challenge. Is like, can you even remember to take a step back and go, all right, how can I inject myself into this environment and fill up the space, right? Without it just sucking the life out of me. Drew, what do you got?
For me, I really like this quote. And, like Bruce Lee is one of my favorite, I guess, philosopher, because, he has some common belief that, for my culture. So that's why, I do look up to Bruce Lee when I'm grown up, try to be healthy, try to be smart. And I really like the quote. And the quote reminds me of, being versatile. You want to be able to have a lot of tools in your toolbox so you can handle different things. For me, the techniques that I use to be water is by learning. When I think of learning, I'm able to gain more tools. And when I have more tools, it allows me to approach a problem, and I can use the best tool for the situation. But one of the saying I keep saying is, to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I don't want to be like the guy who has a hammer only, because I don't want to react in a way that is predictable. Because when you're talking about like a solid or a ground, when you hit against it, it's going to bounce back. It's not going to go around like water would. They're not going to embrace it. And so water is very flexible and versatile in that way, just because it has multiple things it could do, and it would choose the best tool or best way for it to adapt. And I think, having the adaptability give you the versatility of you. So you become a person that, like you said, from a lot of times when you are, the baby's crying in the middle of the night. But me looking back at what I've done in the past, right? There's only one or two things that I know how to do to soothe the baby. But now that I'm much older, I have very much more in my toolboxes that I can handle that without stressing myself out. So I think the more versatile you are, the easier you'll be able to overcome any obstacle, regardless what that may come. Because a lot of time you don't choose your external environment or the thing that happens to you. But if you have things that you can use to deal with it, it makes it easier. Because if you have only one thing, right, that's the only thing you can use. And so for me, by learning, by adapting, by, you know, taking somebody's, you know, concept, like the books, you know, all the books that people take their lifetime to distill into a book for us to take and consume and instill into, you know, our daily life, makes us more versatile. And you want to be versatile, you want to be like water. So for me, when I think of that quote, that's what's make me feel. So having the quote in my mind, on top of mine, I'm even more excited to pick up a book and learn, pick a new audio book and see new things that I haven't seen. I'm seeing myself that if I continue to learn more and more, then I become more and more versatile. I become more and more fluid like water. And that makes me able to deal with things with easier than I would have without.
Sounds like you're not very reactional, or not very, you don't react on emotion. It sounds like you almost enjoy pausing, opening up your tool chest and saying, all right,
Yes.
look at all the different things that I have here.
Exactly.
How do I want to, that's interesting.
I don't want to react. I want to respond. Because if I go and somebody pisses me off, I'm not going to react in a way that most people act. You just push back and you get mad or whatever. I don't want to react. I want to respond. Respond means I get to choose the
You're in
reactions.
control.
Right. And so learning to be like that makes it give you the most optimal outcome for whatever that you're trying to deal with.
Yeah,
that's interesting. The fact I never heard. I mean, it just kind of struck me when you said I want to respond, not react.
Don't react, respond. Because let's say you spit in my face, right? There's a number of things I can do to you, right? There's a lot of things I can do to you, but I'm going to choose what I'm going to do. I'm not going to just, you know, push you back or whatever, because that may not be the best option. But if you can get to that point, you can control.
That moment between stimulus and response. You like to be in that moment of kind of like, what am I going to choose to do? Fly through that.
Yeah.
You're a wise man, Drew.
Yeah, true. I don't know. I really like speaking right there. I think helped me solidify just the poise and kind of just the clarity. It's like you think of like water as like stress-free too, you know, like it just is and it can be still.
Yes, because you can't hit cool, water, like, right? It just go around you.
You have
so I think that's just wise. And you're right. There are different tools that we end up learning, or we end up learning through experience or through reading, and just like how to respond to situations. I like how that word respond is also a shortened version of responsibility, sort of like that.
So I think we naturally they'll go to that, whatever that normal, our habits of, you know.
We usually react. I mean, that's like the quickest thing to do, you know. It's like, so it does take time and energy to like step back, and I think this is a good.
Yes, because it's essentially you have this automatic response, so it's taking energy to hold it back. So it takes a lot of energy to actually hold it back. So it takes practice. But without learning a concept from different people, it's hard to make that happen. But eventually, once you read a lot of books, you see a lot of people doing it, eventually it'll get you. Just like Chris and I were doing like the Wim Hof, right? Eventually we'll get better. Eventually we can hold our breath a little bit longer. And so by practicing is the only way for us to improve. Like I said, the techniques and the strategies I use is to learn. That's why for me, learning is something that I like to do. And it feels good because on the back end of it, the values of the benefits that I see in terms of if I want to be fluid, I want to be versatile. This is what makes me get that benefit. And because that benefit is important to me, learning is actually fun versus just reading books and just learning random things.
Well, and it's the consistency part of it too, because even like Wim Hof, if you don't do it for a while, how long you hold your breath is going to go down. Or if you don't practice stopping in that moment and saying, all right, what are my tools here? You're going to go back to your natural reaction. And, so it's the consistency of doing it, which is hard.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, just say anything like takes practice and you get out of it and it becomes more challenging. So I think one thing, even that's like what reading can even do for me or maybe others too, it's like gives you things to consider to like pause and maybe like not react, or or like my meditation like just gives me like reason to kind of like pause and like reflect a little bit before reacting.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you have momentum, it actually makes it easier. So when you meditate the first time, it's hard to keep your mind fixed on certain things. But eventually, the more you meditate, the more you're able to control your mind. The same thing with Wim Hof is the more you practice and hold your breath, you're able to hold longer, right? And longer. Because right now I can't hold more than, a minute, but Chris can do for 2 minutes in some seconds.
Yeah,
so
but
thing
I
is,
don't even know if that's good or not. Honestly, I mean, I think Wim
that's
Hof can do
good
it for like 5 minutes or something.
6 minutes.
That's insane.
But the thing is, they have to train just like this, like you do, right? And same thing with, like, let's say for you, Aaron, if you want to do fasting, right? You can't go and fast 4 days at the start of the gate. It's going to be hell. But if you fast for a day, and you fast for 2 days and 3 days, whatever, over time, going whatever, it's easy.
Yep.
It's easy. The momentum of acquiring new techniques and new tools is actually easy, becomes a habit. For us, Chris and I read books, and this becomes a part of us. We don't actually say, hey, we had to do this. It's like, oh, I was just reading it. I don't even know that I'm actually have to go do something. It's just automatically, we look for new books, we see books, we add it to the library, and then we take it out and we just consume them.
Yeah, I wanted to circle back a little bit to a comment that Snow made almost at the very beginning about not being so rigid with your habits. The being water concept for me is kind of making your habits understand the why behind your habits versus the what you're doing. Like I said, I could care less about what I'm doing. I don't care if my exercise every day or something like that is a run, if it's a HIIT workout, if it's tennis, if it's a walk, or if it's on a beach or swimming in the ocean or something. Movement is the goal, right? And being able to be flexible and adaptable to where you're at and what you're trying to accomplish, not the what of it. Like, I don't want to fall in love with what I do. Yes, I do these things right now every single day. Yes, True and I meet every single night at this time. Like, yes, I wake up every morning and I write in the mornings, and I read a little bit or listen to an audiobook and then go exercise. But like, if that whole entire thing got thrown out the window tomorrow, I would still find a way to adapt and mold to whatever that new environment would be to still accomplish those objectives that I have, which is to live my values personally. So like, that's for me is probably the biggest takeaway, I would say, from what you were talking about, of like, how do I just be not the what that I'm doing, the why I'm doing the, like, if one of your goals is to be a better friend or something like that, go have that beer with your buddy. I guess that was the big sentiment that I was thinking as you guys were talking through that.
I mean, that goes back to being water, being adaptable, meaning the more information you have and the more tool, let's say you got a new tool today. If that tool fits into that situation better, then your action would change. Because you have learned something new. You approach it a different way. For example, now that I'm much older and my kids are grown, if I knew what I know now, back then when I was trying to soothe my kid from crying, I would do something different. I wouldn't do the same thing because I know better. And that's the beauty of being water. When you have more information, have more tools, you're able to figure out which is most suitable to deal with the situation or to act or to behave in a certain way. And it allows you to adapt. Like, you become more fluid. You adapt better. You make different actions. So your core values and what you take actions on it is going to change for us, for me and Chris, right? Because we have learned about the core values and we have learned about each other over the past 2 years, right? We start with something. Right now we're on this journey of doing a podcast, and then later on it could be in something else. But if you look back at the things we've done, right, we said, well, I'm kind of embarrassed of what I've done in the past because I didn't know any better. But now that I knew better, I wouldn't do that anymore.
Right.
So we upgraded ourselves, we improved ourselves, and we changed our behaviors. And that's the beauty of being fluid.
Like you're big on part of being fluid is having a lot of tools in your tool chest helps you be more fluid. You can't be fluid when you're a one-trick pony.
Exactly. You don't want to be a one-trick pony. And the thing is, to me, as a handyman, I know it's very hard to build things and to fix things when you don't have tools. And when you have tools, it's easier. The work quality is superior. And it's more fun. And like I said, the tools make a big difference.
It helps too in that moment, again, where I think everybody flies through, something happens and you say, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. I think it helps extend that moment of, all right, what do I want to choose to do? And you're like, I got a bunch of different things, options here. It's not just like, all right, this is the one thing I know how to do, or I can react and do it. It's you have all these different things that you've learned. You can say, boy, let me think about all these different things that I've learned and what I can apply to this.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a hammer, go ahead and try to build me a house. It's gonna be hard. Well, how do you cut things into smaller pieces? It's gonna be hard with just a hammer, right? So you need a hammer and many other tools to build a house and to build it quick. But if you have a hammer only, it's gonna take you forever.
So what's my new strategy to be more like water? Get a bigger water tool chest.
Curious to hear like when you guys, like kind of referring to this quote, if you can like give an example, when were you in your day to day, when were you not like water?
Oh God, it happens every day, man. Like, I mean, like there's one example from today. Okay. So like I played 3 tennis matches Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I usually try to relax on the weekends these days and give my body time to heal and recover. I've played in some tournament, so I'm physically exhausted right now. Like my body hurts really bad. So this morning I should have been more like water for my morning workout and taken a long walk or something like that and relax. I didn't. I decided to be rigid and keep up with my normal workout schedule. And I feel like shit. I'm tired. I hurt like all day long. I've just been in a funk because it's like I have just no energy. My body is just so beat up right now. And I should have listened to myself and I should have said, this isn't about the workout that I'm doing. This is about just movement, going to spend time with your daughter and, having, so I was not like water this morning. I should have been more like water.
That's great to hear. Because it's sometimes when I hear people say their examples, it helps me reflect on my own self and how I can be more like water. That's why I wanted to do around here to hear.
I was doing prospecting today and I made all these people I needed to reach out to. And then I started going through and doing this outreach to them, only to find out basically our software HubSpot was like, it was owned by someone else, the contact. So I couldn't do outreach to them. I couldn't access it. So all of a sudden I'm stuck here. I'm like, okay, well, this is what I'm supposed to be doing for the next hour. What am I going to do? And, I decided, I kind of just said, all right, well, I'm going to mark this. I'm going to wait until she responds. And I found something else to work on. But for a minute, I'm like, this messes everything up. This
sucks. I'll just do nothing.
Now I'm mad because I was did all this work to do this, and now I can't.
It is frustrating. Yeah. Well, at least you adapted. I mean, you did something. If I were in that situation,
that's being water.
Like,
adapt to the situations.
Get mad at the moment I was frustrated. I will say it took me. There was about 2 minutes where I'm like, what the heck? And then eventually I was like, all right, no point in doing this. I could throw my hands up and say, screw this. I'll just wait. But I found something else to do. But I did get frustrated for about 2 minutes.
Yeah. So the fluid has different viscosity as well. So, sometimes it
goes a little slower.
Viscosity, yeah, much slower.
Today.
Yeah. For me today, well, I'll tell you about me being water. Today, my internet just get shut down because they're working on something, right? And I was supposed to do something and I was supposed to do a number of things, right? So when it shut down, I said, well, it's down. So I went and take a nap.
Water, there you go.
Right, because I'm not mad. It is what it is. So I think if I can recover quickly, if you can recover quickly, that means you can be fluid. Because the thing is, if it takes on your emotion and you get mad or you this and that, then you're still fluid. But like I said, the viscosity of it is still much slower. So
I'm working on that truth level, yeah.
Because like I say, if it happens right now, I say, well, it is what it is. And say, well, I'm sorry, I couldn't join you. And that's it, right? I go to the next thing, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. My kids called me from school today and she said, hey, I want to be picked up early. Can you come get me out of class? Because, the school make me go to class, but in class, they don't teach you anything because it's just the final 2 days. And so I asked, why you want to get out, right? And my daughter tell me that, they don't teach anything. They just make you watch movies and it's boring, whatever. And so I say, okay, I'll go pick you up. Like, she can stay in school if she wants. She can go home if she wants. And also for me to decide whether I want to go pick her up or not, it's up to me. I don't have any resistance in that. If it makes sense to me, I'll go pick her up. If it doesn't, then I didn't. That's why I texted you today, Christian, hey, you want to meet up early? I pick up my kids from school. So You know,
Jeez.
I think you forgot actually that we have you guys out on Mondays. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh crap. Well, no, we'll just leave it at this. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that, you know, and sometimes being water makes you do that.
I think too, it's hard
But like,
sometimes to do something that's like positive, you know, and you have to adjust. Like you could, like True probably maybe he needs a nap. He gets a nap anyways. Like, oh, I'm gonna take my nap now because that's, you know, some people say, all right, well, I'm just gonna go play video games, or I'm just gonna, you know, I'm just gonna do nothing, you know. And I think it's also being water and, you know, adapting in positive ways too, not, you know, not just choosing to do something else or something different.
I mean, sure, you could actually just be water and kind of do nothing, you know, maybe your whole life. I wonder if you're being too much like water, are you challenging yourself enough? You know, are you putting yourself in enough obstacles?
I think I am. I think I'm pretty ambitious in a way. I mean, I read a lot of books and I like to try things that they prescribe in the books, regardless of if it makes sense to me, I'll do it. Like, you know, I quit caffeine, I prioritize my sleep, I do, you know, I prioritize my health. I'm on a carnivore diet. I'm on a rolling 48-hour fast, right? And I'm doing it, right? So and I'm doing the Wim Hof, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so
where do you want to grow though? Like where are you trying to grow right now?
Business, I probably have too many.
Oh, okay.
I have actually 4 active ventures that I'm involved in as a fractional CTO. And so I'm probably have too much. I don't want to take any more on. But for me, it's about the health. I need physical health, mental health, and then the financial health. You know, we've been recruited by a lot of people to be the co-founder of stuff. And so for me, it's like, I don't want to spend too much time on the business and not on what I'm shooting for, which is like, for me is I've learned that without health is nothing means
you got balance.
Right. And so for me, business, I do have businesses and people like, people, wants to recruit me to do this and that and other. And I have to, most of the time I turn them down unless it's something that aligns with, like, just like we talking about, remember Jordan, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Jordan came by. He wants us to build him an app. I said, well, it doesn't align with my core values. I can't participate in that. Right. And so for me, it's that I probably have too many than I want. I probably want 1 or 2, but I have double that, but still I prioritize my health over everything else. Because in the morning I do my exercise. And if I don't feel like doing it, I won't do it. I mean, if I need to take a nap, I'll take a nap. I mean, things can wait.
So
Okay.
I heard a quote the other day to your question of like, are you, stagnant, right? Like, well, if you're water, like you can be a swamp or you can be a river, right? So like, yes, I think even water, if you just sit in one spot, can become bad, right. So you need to always be taking in fresh new water and getting rid of some of the old water, but also adapting to your environment.
Right. And so if you think about learning, it's like fresh water, it's like new blood. Because if you are excited about learning, what's the point of learning if you don't practice or don't try it?
Well, learning really is practice, I would say.
Right. Because when you say, hey, I open a book and I say, this guy, Wim Hof is, he can hold his breath. He can stay in the ice. The thing that impressed me the most is like when they inject the bacteria into him and he recovers in a few days. To me, that's impressive. I mean, his body is really, really optimal. And I want that. And that aligns with my core values. And I say, well, I'm taking cold shower. Because the thing is, it is what he has that I want. And it aligns with my core values of having optimal health. Therefore, when I read the book, I'm going to do things.
No, you know how many people they'll read books and they say, oh, I've read this book, I read that book. And then you look at their life and you're like, I've read that book too. And I know you don't apply any of that stuff. So,
right.
I mean, it's probably a one of those vanity metrics. And, hey, I read a lot of books. I know a lot of people who read a lot of books, but can't even carry a conversation. Right. For me, when I read books, right, I can't do anything else because I'm actively paying attention. There's no point of me having an audio or book, but I'm ignoring it. What's the point? So for me, when I listen to an audio book, I'm like listening to it. I can't multitask and say, hey, I'm cooking or I'm doing something. I can't because I'll miss it. Because when you read books, Like you said, when you read books, you're highlighting and you're taking notes, right? That's actively reading. It's actively learning. A lot of people who put it on just to have it on and say, hey, I've read a lot of books, it's different.
I got to pause between books that I read because usually it's like I got to have at least a 2-week period of like where I'm really like trying to constantly, apply. I have a hard time going back to back or reading multiple books. I can't do it.
Right.
That's why I can like reading a book can take me like maybe a month or two because like then I'm actually really like digesting it and actually thinking and trying to apply it.
The Wim Hof book, for example, I mean, that's not, you don't read the book, but you read the book and then you read research on it. And then you figure out, okay, you look at the videos and you watch YouTube and all that, right? So that's a great book. But then it's not just, hey, I'm reading through it and I'm done, right? And so like another book that I just read, it's called the Sound Balancing. It's basically using sound to heal you using tuning forks. I finished the book and now I got to go to the internet and research on tuning forks and what hertz you need to do, where do you need to put it, how do you do it, right? So not just reading it, but actually want to know more about after, hey, that's an interesting introductory information. Now I need to dig deeper and kind of investigate on what it really is.
I thought you were talking about those bowls where they're like, where it's supposed to be like relaxing and like balance you out, where it's like, wah, wah, those things are supposed to be like healing in some way. But I don't think it's.
Yes, similar to that. But this, this lady, it's using sounds to heal pain, to heal, a lot of stuff. It's kind of like between like, it's holistic, talking about like your energy or whatever. But, there is certain, I guess, reaction to the vibrations of these hertz, and from how it reacts to these vibrations, she can tell by observation of certain things where you have certain, like they say, energy that is being stuck in your muscle or whatnot. And I think there is some validity to it, but I gotta figure out, investigate more.
My mom did massage therapy and they learned a lot about that kind of stuff. Like you have pain in a certain area of the body, usually it's associated with an emotion like regret or stuff like that. I think there's definitely truth in it.
It still needs a lot of research and investigation, but there is some evidence to some effect.
Yeah. Hey guys, I gotta take off here. I gotta get my workout in here before the end of the day, so I'm gonna be like a rock and get out of here.
Awesome. All right. Well, we can wrap up. So, but great conversation in general, and thanks for sharing, everyone. The question we can leave for anybody tuning in is, what techniques or strategies you try to use to be like water in your life. We will see you all next time.
Be water, my friend.